All right, let's dive into one of history's most chilling cold cases, the Isdal Woman. For over 50 years, her identity, her story, her entire existence has been a total mystery. She's been this ghost haunting the Norwegian archives. But now it looks like science is finally about to give that ghost a voice.
Think about what that means. This wasn't just some tragic death. No, this was a deliberate, systematic erasure. It's like someone came in with an eraser and scrubbed her out of existence. Every single clue was a dead end. Every label snipped off, every trace of a life just gone.
So let's go to where it all began. Our story starts in this remote valley outside Bergen, Norway, a place locals have grimly nicknamed Death Valley. And honestly, what was found there was more bizarre, more chilling than anyone could have possibly imagined.
Okay, so let's get the timeline straight. On November 23, 1970, she's last seen checking out of her hotel in Bergen. She drops off 2 suitcases at the train station, and then, poof, she's gone. For 6 whole days, nothing. Then, on November 29th, she's found. And that discovery kicks off an investigation that, believe it or not, is still going on today.
But what's so incredibly unsettling is the scene itself. The investigators, they described it as almost ceremonial. Her body was in this so-called boxer's stance, which is a horrifying but common detail for burn victims. But everything else? No way. The bottles with their labels scraped off, a passport holder that's just ash, and the faint smell of petrol, this wasn't an accident. This was a meticulously staged event.
Yeah, 50 to 70. The autopsy found a massive dose of sleeping pills in her system. Easily enough to be fatal. And that's exactly why the police initially jumped to a suicide theory. But, and this is a huge but, they found soot in her lungs. You know what that means? She was still breathing when the fire started. That one detail, it just complicates everything.
Okay, so the scene in the valley is a total mystery. Then, 3 days later, investigators finally get a break. Remember those 2 suitcases she left at the Bergen railway station? Well, they found them. And what was inside? Well, it started to paint the picture of a true professional phantom.
So how did they even know the luggage belonged to her? It's pretty amazing, actually. Think about all the effort that went into erasing her identity. Some reports even claim her own fingerprints had been sanded off. But despite all that, a single partial print on a pair of sunglasses. That was the smoking gun. That's what connected the phantom to the victim.
So they open these suitcases, right? And they don't find the usual stuff a tourist would have. No, what they found was basically a spy's toolkit. Multiple wigs, different styles and colors, several pairs of glasses but with non-prescription lenses, purely for changing her look. And the clothes? Elegant, but every single manufacturer's label had been surgically removed. This wasn't just about hiding who she was, this was a whole lifestyle of total, absolute anonymity.
And get this, she wasn't just one person. She was many. Investigators eventually uncovered at least 8 fake passports, 8 different aliases. She was a ghost, just slipping across the borders of Cold War Europe, and no one was the wiser.
They also found this little notepad with what looked like gibberish, some kind of code. But when they cracked it, they realized it was actually a pretty clever travel log. It let them map her movements, see from Paris to Stavanger, and then to Bergen right before she died. The woman was constantly on the move.
So you've got the police leaning towards suicide, but the whispers in the valley, the witness accounts, and some really disturbing evidence, they started to paint a very, very different picture, a much more sinister one.
Let's just lay it all out. On one side, you have the official ruling, probable suicide, case closed. But on the other side, you've got all this evidence that just screams murder. Who commits suicide using petrol as an accelerant? Who sands off their own fingerprints? And then, the most chilling part, reports of police literally telling a witness to just forget her, that the case would never be solved. Something is just not right here. And then there's this. This quote comes from a hiker who thinks he saw her just 5 days before she was found. He said she was dressed for the city, not a hike, and walking ahead of 2 men in dark coats. And her expression, he said she looked fearful and resigned, as if she knew what was coming. It's an absolutely haunting final image of her.
So for decades, the case just goes ice cold. Nothing. And then science steps in. Technology catches up. And it turns out there was one place she couldn't erase her identity from: her own teeth. Science was about to give this ghost a voice.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really cool. It's a technique called isotope analysis. Basically, it reads the chemical history that's locked inside your teeth. The water you drank, the food you ate when you were a kid, all of that leaves a permanent chemical signature in your tooth enamel. It's like a geological passport of your life, written right into your body.
And in 2017, this gave investigators their first huge break in almost 50 years. They analyzed the teeth that formed when she was a little girl, and it pointed to a very specific region, near Nuremberg, Germany, around 1930. All of a sudden, this phantom, she had an origin story.
And it gets even better. The analysis could actually track her movements over time. By looking at teeth that formed when she was a teenager, they figured out she probably moved to the border region between France and Germany. A real-life story was finally starting to emerge, all from her tooth enamel.
But you know what? The story doesn't stop there, because science, it never stops advancing. And as these technologies get even more powerful, they're opening up avenues that are leading investigators down paths that absolutely no one saw coming.
And this brings us to the most recent and maybe most shocking development. This new analysis has gotten so precise that it's actually identified a 93% isotopic match to a candidate of interest, a candidate known only as Valentine.
So now you've got these two profiles, and you have to see how they line up. On one side, you have the Isdal Woman. We know she's European, died in 1970, and has these really mysterious chemical shifts in her later teeth. Okay, now look at the profile for this Valentine candidate. Born in Europe, yes, but then at age 11, she moves to the American Midwest. And that move triggered a huge, radical dietary shift.
And this is the smoking gun. This chart shows that unique chemical fingerprint. The values you see there represent a person's diet. And look at that. The carbon isotope value in the Isdal woman's later teeth is a near-perfect match to the value you'd expect from Valentine's diet after 1955. Why? Because that's when she would have started eating American C4 plants, like corn. That's not a common European dietary staple. It's a very specific, very American chemical signature.
So this leaves us with a wild, fascinating question. For 50 years, everyone assumed the Isdal woman was a European spy, a product of the Cold War. But has science just found a ghost from the American Midwest, dead in a Norwegian valley? Or has this incredible new clue just made the mystery of the Isdal woman deeper and stranger than we ever could have imagined?